Hey everyone, welcome to M2 Live. We're excited that we're coming to you tonight live. We're bummed out that we can't be together in person, but we're going to make the best of what's going on. And over the next several weeks, as long as this lasts, we're going to continue to come to you live. But we're going to go ahead and so we're going to continue to do service like normal. We're going to have a time of worship right now. And then afterwards, we're going to continue our Doubted series. And then we're going to follow up with a little bit of, with a challenge and some more giveaways. So here we go. We're going to go into worship.
Here in the valley of my soul, when I am lost and all alone, through the shadows I can see your love is chasing after me. You cross the canyons of my fears, over the oceans of my tears. Like the wind that moves the trees, your love is chasing after me. No mountain higher, no river wider. My heart may wander, your love will never stop chasing after me. Your love will never stop, never stop, never stop. Your love will never stop chasing after me. Your love will never stop, never stop, never stop. Your love will never stop chasing after me. Whoa, whoa. You are the sun upon my skin. You are the moon that pulls me in. Closer than the air I breathe. Your love is chasing after me. No mountain higher, no river wider. My heart may wander, your love will never stop chasing after me. Your love will never stop, never stop, never
Thanks for joining us tonight on M2 Live. This is our first M2 Live service. I'm hoping everything is going well so far. For the past few weeks, we've been going through the series of Doubt It. So we've been talking about some of the doubts and questions about God. This week, we're going to wrap up our Doubt It series with a conversation by talking about what to do when we're questioning what God wants us to do. Sometimes God has plans for us in our lives, and sometimes it's hard to discern exactly what those plans are. Unless you believe you've somehow seen into the future, the direction of your life is largely unknown. We don't know what the future holds. And that can be scary sometimes. What if you make the wrong decision? How do you figure out where God might be leading you? Recently, personally in my life, I was faced with this decision. I was offered this new job, but at first glance, the new job didn't necessarily look like it was the best decision for my life. It was possible that if I take this new job, it wouldn't pay as much as the job I currently had, but it would give me more experience towards my career. It wasn't easy to determine which path I should take in this instance. I wanted so badly for God to just tell me what to do, but God wasn't answering my questions. The decision I had made was difficult, but it's nothing compared to the decision that once had to be made by a woman named Esther. So let's just watch this video that summarizes the story of Esther we're covering today.
Let's just dive into the story. The book opens with the king of Persia throwing 2 elaborate banquet feasts that last a total of 187 days, and it's all for the grandiose purpose of displaying his greatness and splendor. On the last day of the banquet feast, he's really drunk, and he demands that his wife, Queen Vashti, appear at the party to show off her beauty. She refuses, and so in a drunken rage, the king deposes Vashti and makes the silly decree that all Persian men should now be the masters of their own homes. Then he holds a beauty pageant because he wants to find a new queen. This is like a really bad soap opera. But it's right here that we're introduced to Esther and Mordecai. Esther hides her Jewish identity and enters the beauty pageant and wins. And the king is so obsessed with Esther that he elevates her to become the new queen of Persia. Now, after this, and even more serendipitous, is the fact that Mordecai just happens to overhear 2 royal guards plotting to murder the king. And so he informs Esther, who in turn informs the king, and Mordecai gets credit for saving the king's life. Now, right here from the beginning, God's not mentioned anywhere, but this all seems providentially ordered. What is it that God's up to? You have to keep reading. We're next introduced to Haman, who's not actually a Persian. He's called an Agagite. He's a descendant of the ancient Canaanites. Remember 1 Samuel chapter 15. The king elevates Haman to the highest position in the kingdom, and he demands that everybody kneel before Haman. Well, when Mordecai sees Haman, he refuses to kneel, which of course fills Haman with rage. And when he finds out that Mordecai's Jewish, Haman successfully persuades the king to enact this crazy decree to destroy all of the Jewish people. And to decide the date of the Jews' annihilation, Haman rolls the dice. A die is called pur in Hebrew. Tuck that away for later. 11 months later, on the 13th of Adar, all the Jews will die. Haman and the king then have a drinking banquet to celebrate their really horrible decision. So the focus now turns to Mordecai and Esther, who are the only hope for the Jewish people. They make a plan that Esther's going to reveal her Jewish identity to the king and ask him to reverse the decree. But approaching the king without a royal request is, according to Persian law, an act worthy of death. So in a key statement, Mordecai, he's confident that even if Esther remains silent, that deliverance for the Jews will arrive from another place. And then Mordecai wonders aloud. He says, who knows? Maybe you've become queen for this very moment. Esther responds with bravery, and she purposes to go to the king with her amazing words, if I perish, I perish.
So Esther had to make this difficult choice in a time of uncertainty, and she saved the lives of God's people as a result. She had to make a tough decision to risk her own life in order to save all the other Jews. But did you notice something interesting about the story of Esther? God is never mentioned. Not once, not in the whole book. You can check. So I encourage you to read chapters 2 through 4 of the video we just covered if you want to look at it for yourself. That doesn't mean that God was absent from the situation, though, even if God's name was absent from the book. I'm guessing Esther probably went to God in prayer when she was deciding what to do. But all we know is for sure is that she sought out advice from a godly person.
She consulted with Mordecai when faced with a tough decision. When we're experiencing confusion, uncertainty, or fear, it's easy to question what we're supposed to do next and why God is why God isn't making the path clear. Scripture never promises that God will directly tell us what we can do next. But the stories of Esther show us that we need godly people to help us figure things out sometimes. So how do we make decisions when we're not sure what God would do to us next? We get a support system because godly people can help us with our questions. Back to the decision I was talking about earlier with my job. I talked with some friends and some godly mentors in my life, and I eventually came to a conclusion that I should take the new job. I couldn't know on my own if this was the right thing to do, but with the help of godly influences around me, I realized the path that God has for me. We've talked before about how important friendships are in our lives, but that's not the only kind of support system we need. We need a network of godly people of all ages to help us make wise decisions when we're not sure what to do. I want you to be thinking of some people in your life that you know you can go to ask questions. And don't narrow it to just down to friends your age or your parents or your family. Maybe there's some older church members or pastors or parents you can go to when you aren't sure the path God has for you. Don't be afraid of your questions. We've covered a lot of things in this series, like You're Not Alone in Your Questions was the first week. God Does Not Shame Us for Our Questions was the second week. Your questions don't always get answers was last week. And when we're questioning or doubting God, where God is leading us, God knows godly people can help us with our questions and gives us a support system to help us. As we close this series out, I hope the main things you take away from this series are that you don't have to be afraid of your questions or doubts because God can handle them. That you feel safe enough to voice your questions and doubts here or with at least one person you trust. And when you have questions or doubts, you need a process. I hope you know that we love and are always here for you. So godly people can help us with our questions. And in this time of uncertainty where we don't know exactly what's going to happen in the future, schools are closing, restaurants are closing, we have questions like, God, what is happening right now? Why are you doing this? You can come to us with those questions. We are here for you. God is here for you, and he hears those questions. And even though he may not answer those questions right away, he has those answers for you, and he's going to give you the answers that you need. So as we close out our M2 Live tonight, I think we've got a couple more things, a couple more surprises headed your way. I just want you to know that we are some of the godly people that can help answer your questions, and you can come to us with any of your needs. Have a good rest of your night.
Hey, thank you for joining us tonight. I want to first say, Parker, congratulations, you won. You tell me what gift card you want, and we'll get that to you as soon as possible. Before we leave, we're going to pick somebody, and hopefully next week at 6, you'll be enjoying a hot, fresh pizza as long as it's safe to do so. We'll have that delivered to you by the time we go live. But I want to first tell you about something. As we wrapped up our Doubt It series, we know that there are a lot of questions going on. There are a lot of questions in this time. We're kind of in a weird place right now in our country, in the world. And so there are a lot of questions that you might have. So what we want to do is I think we might have froze up for a minute. So I went ahead and picked a winner. So congratulations, Ashland. Next week, you'll have a hot, fresh pizza to have while you're watching with us live. If you have questions, if you didn't hear me, I'm not sure when we kind of cut off for a minute, but if you have questions, we've been talking about Doubt It and knowing that our questions are, it's okay to have questions. It's okay to have doubts. We want to try to help answer some of those questions. So if, again, you can send those questions to Jared at bloomingtoncornerstone.com. Wednesday, we'll have a video on our M2 page that you can hopefully get those questions answered. And then we'll, again, go live next Sunday at 6 p.m. What we're going to do now is we have a little bit of a challenge, a little dance competition. And so I'm going to show you my dance first. And then what I need you to do is go to your app store, download an app called Sway, and send your videos, post them on our M2 page, post them on Instagram, whatever, tag us into it so that we can see it. And then we're going to kind of announce a winner next week, and you'll get a prize for that as well. So I'll kick things off. And Lana, specifically, since you targeted us today, I'm targeting you. We want to see your video by next week.
You hit the beat back when the beat hits, smack that back when the beat hits. You hit the beat back when the beat hits. You hit the beat back when the beat hits. You hit the beat back, smack that back.
Joining with us, we're so blessed that you guys were able to come and meet with us tonight. Even though we can't meet in person, we're thankful that there's a way that we can still kind of connect with one another. Thank you again, and we'll see you next week.